Welcome back to Middlesex Moments, coming to you from Middlesex Community College. I'm Steve Minkler, and I'm joined by three guests today, and our topic is Achieving the Dream. We're going to learn a little bit more about what Achieving the Dream is and how Middlesex Community College is involved with that. And my guests are Laurie Heacock, Paula Talley, and Heidi Zenie. And I'm just going to have each of you introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about what you're doing together with Middlesex as part of Achieving the Dream and what you do outside of Achieving the Dream. So, Laurie, if you want to start off with that.
Steve. Hi, I'm Laurie Heacock, and I'm the Senior Advisor for Data and Analytics at Achieving the Dream. We're a nonprofit located in the Washington, D.C. area. And in my role there, I help support a cadre of data coaches who support our colleges. And I manage our relationship with the Post-Secondary Data Partnership, which is a data collaborative to help build data-informed decision-making. And I serve as a data coach to a number of colleges, including Middlesex. And in that role, I really help colleges build a culture of evidence to make data-informed decisions to better support their students.
Hi, I'm Paula Talley, and I'm Middlesex's leadership coach. In that role, I have the opportunity to work with a core team to really support the change on campus, align the initiatives, and really transform the college to become that student-ready college. And in my professional full-time job, I'm actually part of Charles A. Dana Center, where I'm the manager of professional learning, and I'm working actually at the system level with Connecticut with math and English completion. So at my previous role at Temple College, I was the Dean of Student Success, where I oversaw the developmental English reading and writing. I was the Director of Adult Ed. I oversaw ESL, the tutoring services, and the TRIO program. And I was also a full-time math faculty.
And Heidi, actually, you're a friend of the college and a colleague at one of the other community colleges in Connecticut. And what's your role working together with Middlesex as part of Achieving the Dream?
I am. Thanks, Steve. Yes. So I'm a program coordinator and faculty at Three Rivers Community College. I'm currently on loan to our system office to implement guided pathways. And I actually work with Paula under part of my guided pathways work. I'm a co-lead on ACME, which is alignment and completion of math and English. And so we work with the Dana Center very closely in getting this work done. I'm also a Connecticut State coach. And so I work with Laura and Paula on this work with Middlesex. It's one of the 4 colleges that I have. And really, I'm here to help align the work at Middlesex with the work that's happening at the system level as we move to one college.
Well, I want to thank the three of you for being with me today. We're all talking from our respective homes now that we are kind of working at home during the COVID-19 shutdowns that have affected, really our entire country and much of the world. But nevertheless, I think this is an exciting initiative. It's actually not an initiative. Achieving the Dream is a national network of community colleges. And Laurie, you touched a little bit about what Achieving the Dream is, and maybe if you could expand a little bit on that for our listeners.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Steve. So Achieving the Dream leads the nation's largest network of mostly open access colleges. We have a cadre of 277 colleges, mostly community colleges, but also tribal colleges and universities that have all raised their hand and say we want to really focus on becoming engines of economic mobility and strengthening our communities by really using data and streamlining the student experience. We're not a membership organization. We are a peer learning network, and we support colleges through 3 main pillars of work: coaching, which Paula, Heidi, and I serve as coaches, capacity building, innovation through things like open educational resources, testing things in the field they work and helping to scale them, and connections through learning from each other.
And Middlesex was really proud to join the Achieving the Dream Network. I believe it was last January, 2019. And now we can proudly say that all 12 community colleges in Connecticut are working together with the Achieving the Dream Network to improve our practices and to really focus on student success. And Paula, with your experience in working in the Achieving the Dream Network and having been working at a college that was involved in Achieving the Dream, what are some of the benefits that a college like Middlesex can get from participating in ATD?
Yes, I want to talk from my personal experience, our journey with ATD. So I was part of the core team at Temple College. And what that really did for us, it provided us a framework for our work. We had those initial thoughts that students are coming to us with deficits. They're not ready for college. What are we going to do with these students? The framework and working through ATD actually really helped us push that, really helped us make us think about how can we actually support every student that walks through that door? How can we actually become that student-ready colleges? And the coaches that worked with us really, as Laurie mentioned earlier about being that culture of evidence, they really pushed us to look at our data and really dissect, desegregate, qualitative, quantitative, really dig in to see what was happening, what's the why, what's happening with those achievement gaps, where can we make improvements. And as an organization, we took that opportunity to learn and actually change what was happening at our institution to become a college that was focused on student success. And I have to say the network, being part of the network was critical to that success, because there's some amazing colleges around this country that are doing great things. And without this network, we wouldn't have learned about those things. And you can't replicate them exactly. You take what you can out of what folks are doing and you make it your own. And that's my goal as a leadership coach, is to take those learnings and help Middlesex make some of this work their own, take the good things that are happening at Middlesex and really look at the student population and that student completion, the student success.
Yeah, so I think taking the good things that we're already doing, but also strengthening those areas that maybe we need to pay more attention to, and because we can all do things better in our jobs and in our institutions. I think most people who are listening might think, well, you're a college, shouldn't you always be worried about student success, and aren't you successful? And probably those of us who work at colleges just take it for granted that we think we are. But, Laurie, being our data coach, there are ways of measuring student success. And how does Achieving the Dream approach the whole concept of measuring things that are indicators of student success?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for years, a lot of colleges focused on completion as the end goal. And now we're extending that definition to really look at offering credentials of labor market value so that students can upskill, reskill, and end up with credentials of labor market value so that they can make a family sustaining wage. Most community college students end up living and working in their communities. So through doing that, you're really strengthening your community. We ask colleges to focus on a key set of leading indicators that are levers for change for moving the needle on longer term outcomes like completion. So for instance, we look at completion of gateway English, college level English and math in the first year, credit momentum, and persistence. And we are keenly advocate disaggregating that data, as Paula mentioned, to identify if there's any student subgroups who might not be succeeding at the same level as others, and really trying to dismantle any barriers so that there can be a narrowing of any opportunity or equity gaps that may exist.
And so, for example, I know at Middlesex, we were looking at some of the data that were generated in our work for Achieving the Dream, and we have noticed that there is a gap between students who may be taking classes on a part-time basis versus full-time, students of color versus white students, and how we need to kind of adjust our college culture and to pay attention to these things in a much more purposeful way going forward. So why is it really important to address those gaps?
Equity is rooted in the concept that all students receive what they need to be successful, and it's different than equality, right? Equality is sameness, and equity is really fairness. So if you think about community colleges serve a large percentage of like first generation students. So if they're coming to college for the first time, like fostering that sense of belonging and using inclusive language and really making sure that you're ideally mapping that student experience very intentionally, so that there are not like graduation holds and fees and barriers and policies that might be harming them in any way. So we want to make sure that all students have an ideal experience and that we enable them any way we can, so that we have a diverse pipeline which strengthens our workforce.
And Heidi, I have to think that the work that you're doing with guided pathways and the forward momentum of our system going to become one college, this is a primary focus of the state of Connecticut to work in this direction, is it not?
It is, absolutely. And equity is our major focus. And so we have some policies that have already been enacted to work towards that. So we've already taken off the application fee for students. We've instituted the new policy on holistic case management advising. And that's really going to help students. It's going to help us as faculty and staff break down silos and allow us to work together. And there's 4 different things that are really strong in this policy. And it's taking our ratios, which are currently advising ratios, which are currently around 750 to 1 advisor, 750 students to 1 advisor. And the policy mandates that comes down to 250 to 1, which is going to be a huge advantage to our students. It's also going to ensure that every student gets an assigned advisor that they will get as soon as they apply to the college, and it will follow them through to completion. And that advisor will help them create a personalized academic and career plan. So not only will we help them get through community college, but beyond, so they can complete their long-term goals. And the 4th thing that's this policy will ensure is that we have a student-centered technology platform, which is going to help both faculty and staff follow our students. And I do have to say that the 2 architects of this policy is Mike Bacilli from Gateway and Middlesex's own Gail Barrett.
Mm-hmm. And we're very proud of that, obviously. So it sounds like it is a way, as you said, to personalize the experience more for the student, but as importantly, because a student will be assigned an advisor, they're more likely to stay on track to take the courses they need to then graduate on time and not spend a lot of time churning around taking unnecessary classes at the college.
Correct,
okay.
Yes.
Well, it's time for a short break. When we come back, we'll talk more about achieving the dream at Middlesex Community College and something that we did just this week called the Capacity Cafe, which is taking what we've learned from all the data we've been looking at and working toward a plan for how the college will move forward next year. You're listening to Middlesex Moments from Middlesex Community College.
Every education is a good education, and you can't take any of that for granted. What I learned about community colleges is that the community part is just as important as the college part. And while I went to community college in an attempt to lift myself up, what I found was that I was surrounded by people and we were lifting each other up.
Welcome back to Middlesex Moments, coming to you from Middlesex Community College. I'm Steve Minkler, together with my guests Paula Talley, Laurie Heacock, and Heidi Zenie. And before the break, we were talking about the Achieving the Dream National Network of Community Colleges and Middlesex Community College's involvement with that. And this past semester, a number of people at the college participated in a survey called the Institutional Capacity Assessment Tool, and that led into some events we had last week as a way of getting a handle on the college's capacity to look at improving our rates of student success and just being a better college for all of you who are listening to this program. And Laurie, could you talk a little bit about what is this ICAT and how do we use it as a tool for improvement at a college like Middlesex?
Sure, thanks, Steve. So Achieving the Dream has an institutional capacity framework, which has 7 key capacities that a college needs to focus on to really foster that student-focused culture and to be able to implement large-scale reforms and transformations and achieve those equitable student outcomes. So a companion to that framework is this Institutional Capacity Assessment Tool, or ICAT, and it's an inquiry and reflection tool. It's a self-assessment that colleges can take, and it just asks a series of questions about the college's leadership and vision, data and technology, communication and engagement, policies and practices, and equity, So it's really a conversation starter or to spark conversation. So colleges administer that broadly and get their results back, and they can assess where they have strengths, opportunities to build capacity, and move into action items. And I think we call the capacities like the fundamentals framework. You always have to keep your eye on those because it's almost your readiness to be able to do work. And I think right now with COVID, if you have strong capacities, it also helps you with your adaptation and your ability to be agile and resilient. So, I think the capacities are important for implementing any large scale change.
So we took the results of the ICAT assessment and kind of looked at those a little bit as a core team. And the core team, we should say, is a smaller group of folks at the college, a committee that's steering the work through the lens of achieving the dream on behalf of the whole college. We took the results of that ICAT and used them in an event we had last week called a Capacity Cafe. And Paula, what is a Capacity Cafe and how did this work at Middlesex last week?
So the Capacity Cafe is actually it's modeled after the World Cafe. It's designed to actually be facilitated in person when you have a large group of people in a room and you're facilitating some conversations and doing some reflections and creating some action steps. But obviously in this time of COVID, we couldn't get everybody together. So we quickly got together and found a way to do it virtually. So through this virtual interaction, we engaged a large cross-sector population at Middlesex. And I have to say, it was actually amazing to see the diverse stakeholders involved. Many of those people aren't normally invited to the table to reflect on and think about student success. So we did some initial reflections on the ICAT results with the group as a whole. We actually recruited note takers and facilitators from Middlesex that we led the groups into virtual breakout rooms where they had small groups of 4 to 8 folks really talking and reflecting, building on the results of the tool, the ICAT that you took. And the role was they needed to look for the successes and celebrate because we always want to build on the good work that we've done. But as you mentioned earlier, it's also looking at the areas which you need to strengthen. How can we become better at what we do to support the students and then have time to actually think about what actions you can take? Oftentimes you see just a small group of people creating the actions for the college. This is the opportunity to bring everyone at the college together to see that they're all important to this work, that they're actually all, the comments came up, they all can help advise, they all can be educators and be leaders in this work no matter what their role was. So it's actually, I don't know about Laurie and Heidi. I mean, I thought it was a huge success and it was a lot of fun to actually facilitate. And Heidi, also, I know there was a lot of comments that came out about the question of how the work aligned to the system work with that, with the guided pathways, because Connecticut also had to complete the scale of adoption. So how did the work actually align to the guided pathways work too?
First of all, I was really pleased with the amount of people and the richness of the conversation during the cafe. I think that we had some people attend that hadn't really had time to be in these discussions before. So it was really great to have them come and learn and join the conversation. And it's interesting to see the work that takes place on campus and and how it aligns to the system work and the capacities. So as work is disseminated down from the system, we see that it has to be implemented on campus. So being able to evaluate what the capacities are in campus to facilitate this change has been really interesting and aligning really well. And I think we get a lot of data out of this, which will help us move forward locally.
And Laurie, what was your takeaway from some of this? I know having participated in it, the three of you kind of jumped into each of the breakout rooms. So Actually, as we were wrapping up for the day, I felt a lot of excitement among the people who participated. Did you sense that as well?
Absolutely. I thought, people have been working remotely, and I think it really fostered a sense of community. And each of the breakout rooms had a cross section of people in them from different areas of the college. So it broke down silos and gave academic affairs and student services an opportunity to share their insights. One of the groups had a student participant, and I thought that was terrific because we're huge advocates of bringing in the student voice because we're designing for them. And so having their input's critical. You had cabinet level engagement, which shows commitment of leadership, and every group left with action items which they develop so they'll feel ownership. So I was really, really pleased with how the event went.
So for any of you, were there some action items that kind of sprung out from the group that, either to help sustain a strength that we have or perhaps strengthen an area that maybe we're not so good at right now? Anything jump out to any of you?
Well, what I was really excited about, many times we're in conversations with faculty and staff, and there's a lot of dwelling on how hard it was to shift to this virtual environment. The faculty and staff at Middlesex were actually the opposite. They were so let's see what we've learned from shifting to this virtual environment of teaching and learning and supporting students. And how can we actually embed some of the things that we've done well into supporting all students in the future? So how do we reach those night students? How do we reach the online students? They talked about virtual career fairs or student services at night. So it was really interesting that they were focusing on what they were learning right now in this swift transition to the remote environment, and thinking about, so even if we go back to normal tomorrow, which we know is not going to happen, but even if we go back to normal tomorrow, we've learned a lot that we actually want to put into action to support our students at Middlesex.
I guess in what little time we have left in today's show, I'm wondering if any of you maybe want to take this one on, which is to ask you, if you imagine you are a student or a parent of a student who's listening to this show right now, what would you say to them about Middlesex Community College being a stronger place to send the student to because we are involved with achieving the dream and really thinking about student success at our institution?
So I'm not just saying this, but I'm really impressed with the leadership and the talent that Middlesex has in their faculty and staff. And from what I've witnessed so far, there's this desire to develop these relationships and create this sense of belonging for students. And we know that that's critical to the success of students, is they can actually come on campus and feel like they are heard, they are seen, and they are brought into the work, as you mentioned, have been brought into these different committees. So I really see those relationships as a place that would be important. So if I was a parent sending my student, I'd want them to go to a place such as Middlesex, where I knew that they would just see my child as a number, but they were actually part of this campus, and we believe in them, and we want them to belong and prosper.
I'll go next.
Sure.
So I'm going to sort of go off of Paula, and this is, I've gotten this feeling not only because being in the Capacity Cafe, but the number of times that I've been on campus for a number of different events and stuff. And I have to say that Middlesex is really unique in a lot of ways, and the fact that you have such a close-knit community. Everybody cares for each other. During the cafe yesterday, even at times when we were talking about opportunities for the college to grow, people were very cautious to say, I think this is an opportunity that we can grow, but this person does a really great job. And so there's that caring component, when I come on campus, and the security guards ask me if they can help me, and so as a parent, I have two kids that have gone through college, and it's a stressful time deciding where you're going to send your student, and so knowing that they can come to an environment like this, which is one of caring and not only about each other, but about the students that go to that college, I think it's a huge asset for you.
Thank you. And Laurie?
So I think one of the key words with any community college is the word community. Middlesex is your community's college and offers small class sizes, outstanding instruction, holistic student supports, academic as well as non-academic, to ensure that your students will succeed. So if I was a parent and I had a high school senior, or I had a child in a residential four-year college who's doing remote learning because of COVID, I would seriously consider sending my child to Middlesex College in the fall.
And I want to add to that real quick. It's not just the students coming right out of college, but if I was an adult learner coming back, I think it's a place where I could feel included and not overwhelmed and scared to walk into to this learning environment that I've been out of for many, many years. So I think it builds on both of what Laurie and Heidi were stating, that it's not just our children, but it's also our colleagues, our friends, our mothers, our grandmothers. I think it's a place that anybody could come back and improve, get the credentials that they're looking for.
Right, especially COVID's going to have, a large impact on the labor market. So Middlesex offers lots of opportunities for retraining and upskilling and reskilling to be able to, find or upgrade your career skills to help you with your employment needs.
Well, thank you all very much. We should say the same is true of Three Rivers Community College, which is Heidi's home college too. So,
and that's the other college we coach. So yes, okay. they're great too.
Yep. Or any of the 12 community colleges in the state of Connecticut. But I thank you for your thoughts specific to Middlesex. So I want to thank my guests, Paula Talley, Heidi Zenie, and Laurie Heacock, for joining me today on Middlesex Moments to talk about achieving the dream and the work that we are doing together with Middlesex Community College to strengthen student success and become a better college for all of you who seek education through our institution. So I'd like to thank you, our listeners, for joining us for another edition of Middlesex Moments. As always, you can visit us 24/7 online at mxcc.edu. And as soon as we are able to reopen our main campus after COVID-19, we are located at 100 Training Hill Road in Middletown, and we also have our Meriden Center at Platt High School. So on behalf of everybody at Middlesex Community College, I'm Steve Minkler. Please be safe and be well.